Glenn, absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for having us down to this absolutely beautiful property. We're in a 5-bedroom suite, so thank you for treating us very well.
My pleasure. Welcome.
Glenn, I'd love for people watching and listening just to get a feel for yourself, a bit of your background. We always like to start, what was your first role in hospitality and how did you become to Dubai and general manager here today?
My first role in hospitality, I guess you could say linked to hospitality, was actually working for my mother in her retail shop when I was still at school. And she used to sell kitchenware items, spatulas and oven mitts and things like this. Interestingly, I quite enjoyed it, but I didn't understand why then. Fast forward a few years and then finished high school. Wasn't really too sure what I wanted to do. But I had a very strong interest in a partner who said, you have to do something, otherwise we're not going to be together anymore. So I went and found a bar course that I could do, and I did that. So I started working in the local golf club in the beverage side, and that was interesting for quite a few years. Then went to college in Sydney and did my diploma there. After that, the love of my life at the time then was travelling over in Europe and the UK, so I went and joined. We did a bit of travelling together. I spent a month in a hotel in Southampton, and then came back and got a proper job in hospitality, which then turned into a traineeship. I then worked my way to one of the best 5-star hotels in Sydney, I believe, which was the A&A Hotel at the time, became the Shangri-La some years later. And as a group, they had a new opening in Muscat. So I was able to transfer from Sydney, come to the Middle East for the very first time in the resort in Muscat. And we opened that. Then an opportunity came again within the group to come to Dubai. So I came to Dubai with them and was wondering whether or not I'd actually last in Dubai, because the pace was just absolutely incredible. Working in Sydney was I thought fast-paced and, quite a solid business. Going to Muscat was very quiet and slow. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, but not at all a city as we know many other capital cities. And coming here, I remember many nights my heart was racing. I thought, well, if I last 3 months, I'll be fine. And 17 years later, I'm still here.
Amazing. You said you were inspired and pushed by the love of your life. It's obviously Valentine's Day right now. Did that transpire to...
Yeah, well, we ended up getting married and having 3 kids, so yeah.
Amazing. And the whole family's did they move with you to Dubai? And
yeah, not originally.
Okay.
When I came to Muscat, it was a point of financial decision, really.
Yeah.
Let's do this for a couple of years and see how it works out. But in the end, in Dubai, the opportunity was there to bring them over, and it's such a fantastic and easy place for a family to grow up and live. And the kids were teenage years. Okay. So they did their high school here, and and it worked out very well.
It's a really interesting point, because a lot of people will be listening back in the UK or in Ireland or the US, and we've had a lot of, I suppose, Dubai-based episodes recently, but we never actually talk about that family transition over, because everyone just thinks hoteliers, they move from one managerial role to another, and we move from cities or countries, but we don't actually think about the family side. So if you were to talk about brand Dubai and what it was like for a family transition for people who are maybe looking at it and thinking about it.
Well, look, the first thing I would say is that it's not for everybody, all right? The way we did it was not for everybody, because I came across first by myself. The family stayed at home, and we were like that for about two and a bit years. And that was a very difficult period. But when they finally came over, back then, this was 2008, so things have changed with the processes of visas and driving licenses and finding a place to live in Ijari and all of that. So that whole process has become a heck of a lot simpler. And also what I found is that from the schooling perspective, for the kids, while they all sort of adjusted to their schools very, very differently, we have 3 kids, they were welcomed much, much quicker than what I found back home in Australia. And I would imagine that would be very similar to many other parts of the Western world where kids grow up in their community and, you know your friends from when you're a little baby because your parents are still friends with their school kids. And it's quite an insular community, and to try and break into that as a newbie is very, very difficult. But over here, and this was 2008 when they came over, there was still a lot of growth happening. And they were pretty much welcomed in and had a great bunch of friends that they're still friends with now.
Yeah, I think it's that transitory nature of living in an expat city. I even notice it among, people my age who move over from London and stuff. You have friends in the space of a week because that expat mentality of everyone's here somewhat by themselves.
Yep.
And you're welcomed. You're an Aussie. What's the sport? Rugby?
It depends.
Right. Not rugby lately, so.
Not lately. To be honest, I'm more beach oriented.
Okay.
I love the beach. I grew up on the northern beaches in Sydney, so I love surfing. I love swimming. Yeah. I do a lot of stand-up paddleboarding these days. Yeah. I find that's really good for the fitness.
Yeah.
I will follow Australia in the rugby when. Yeah.
So, as an Irishman, I'll talk about the rugby a little bit because we've a fairly good team this generation.
I did start to follow the Cricket World Cup, I must admit. I don't follow it too much, and then I was told by somebody that we're in the finals. I was like, okay, who are we playing? And then it was against India, and India had won every single game in the matches leading up to it, and I thought, that's going to be fun. So I was very proudly Australian at the end of that match.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. We've discussed obviously the move personally, but if we just talk about hospitality for a minute and the difference between hospitality you found in a place like Australia. Obviously we're quite well known back in Ireland for hospitality, but what would you think the cultural differences are when it comes to hospitality here in Dubai and the expectations maybe of the guest?
Gee, that's a super question. That's a really, really good question actually. I think Dubai has developed so far and so quickly that there is already a lot of high expectations on it. I think when you look at established markets like Ireland, like Australia, the US, UK, whatnot, there's an expectation of what it is because it has been there for donkey's years. I think it's all very, very good, but what happened with Dubai is Dubai really burst onto the scene with luxury properties, so it was very high-end and therefore very high expectations, I think, came along with it. And I think a lot of that still carries on today, that there are very high expectations of the guests that come here. Yes, the landscape has changed within our industry where there's a lot more mid-market and budget options. But even still, you have a look at a 4-star, 3-star hotel that you would book in Dubai and you compare it to London, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck over here than what you do over there. And I think rightly so, there should be high expectations over here because you do have those wonderful products and we have to match it with the service to go with it.
We're at, we haven't spoken about the property we're in today, Millennium Place. Can you give us Millennium? I think anyone in Dubai will definitely know the group. Big group worldwide too, but can you give us a bit of an insight on the group and then of course this property, maybe talk about how big of a property it is that you're managing?
Yeah, sure. So Millennium is globally about 130 properties at the moment and have presence through Asia, Singapore, China, through UK, Europe, US, and obviously the Middle East and Africa. So in our region here, we have quite a number of hotels. We're probably one of the fastest growing groups, I would imagine, in this city, in the city itself. And this property only opened in 2019, Millennium Place in Barsha Heights. So TCOM, we're a little back from the beach, but still only about a 10-15 minute drive away. We're a bit of a beast of a property. We have 917 keys, and that's made up of both serviced apartments as well as hotel rooms and suites. And we're officially a 4-star brand, but I think the quality of what the ownership have invested into this property, and at the moment we're sitting in our penthouse suite, it's really a high-end 4-star.
Okay. And Glenn's given me the penthouse suite this evening, so I'll be able to leave a review tomorrow.
Please do. We all live on our review scores these days.
We talked about, you said it opened in 2019. For pre-opening a property, the big difference between operating something and coming in as a manager for something that's been up and running, that has a track record, versus, a brand new property. Can you give a bit of insight on what you feel the major differences are, and maybe the expectations when you came in to the reality?
Yeah, so I joined in June of 2019. We opened the doors on the 20th of October. So thankfully within the Millennium Group itself, we have a team that were preparing a lot of elements beforehand and years beforehand. The technical team were involved with the ownership and the engineering side with some of the work required here. And before me, a lot of the team members were preparing, the operating equipment and things like that. So when joining, it was at a point where it was pretty much putting the final touches on things, getting the team organised, making sure we've got the procedures. This was the second Millennium Place property in our group. The first one had opened at the Marina just in April. So it's a new brand, and so we had to do a lot of brand introduction and training and make sure that when we're recruiting people to, be aware of the brand and be a part of the brand as well. So it's a very interesting process when you go through from the start and you're building everything from scratch with the people around you. You see the team growing and they're all having this experience of settling into a new place, getting their uniforms, finding out where they're living. And amazingly enough, we're very lucky our team live just a few buildings down the street from us, so they don't have to hop on a bus and travel for half an hour to get to work. And it really helps to bond the team. Add to that, with any technical installation, things go pop sometimes that you don't really want them to go pop. And it's amazing to see how quickly, the team then comes together to help rectify a situation. We had a burst water pipe, for example, in one of the very, very early days. It didn't affect any guests. It affected our kitchen. We had to move everything in about half an hour's time from one restaurant to the other for breakfast service. But that's the thing, you've got everyone who's just come together. There's great camaraderie. Everyone's, in tune with each other, I guess, and understand the importance of what we have to do and move really quickly to make it happen.
Do you think that camaraderie comes from there's more of a feeling of ownership because they've opened something together versus inheriting something?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Definitely. That's the thing, you're really starting things from scratch. You're part of the pioneering team. You're creating things. Maybe there are some procedures that you'll inherit from the company, but at the end of the day, you're taking them on and rolling them out to a brand new batch of people, Yeah. Whereas when you're in an existing property, you're coming in to absorb what that is, learn what it is, be a part of a mechanism that's already existing. So there is sometimes a little bit of that, I wouldn't say challenge, but that mindset of, well, do I come in and how far does my role go in this, depending on the position of the person, how what's working, what doesn't work. Do I come in with my already preconceived ideas from my history and just, put it in here as well or not? So I think being part of an opening, and I'm sure others that you will or will have spoken with already will say that there is quite a difference in the team from an opening to an existing
operation. I can imagine. Millennium in Dubai, don't quote me, but I think it's, over 20 properties anyway in the city.
I won't
if I'm right. Okay.
There's often changes.
Yeah.
Happen quickly. It's around 15.
Okay.
Last count.
Right.
We just opened another hotel in Doha.
Yeah.
And there's more to come.
Yeah.
There's more opening in Saudi as well.
Yeah. Cool.
But we've got around 15 properties or so here in Dubai at the moment.
Because on one of my morning runs in Business Bay, I run by a few of them. So I wanted to ask the pros and cons of having lots of neighbours and friends and a brand to work with. But at the same time, as a guest, I come on and I have quite a few options of the same brand across Dubai.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. We've diversified the portfolio of the properties that are in Millennium. So, as I said, Millennium Place is a new brand for the company. We have Millennium. You would run past the Grand Millennium then in Business Bay. Yep. There's Millennium Central in Business Bay. We have another brand called Studio M. We have Copthorne. We have Kingsgate. And we have the Biltmore collection. One of those properties is the Baba Casa in Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
So there's a variety of brands to help give different options for guests. But like you said, even here in TCOM, I have a Grand Millennium in the opposite corner, which is all of, 500, 600 metres away?
Yeah.
You can take the building about 3 buildings away from us as a Ramada. I have about 10 buildings here in this neighbourhood that I'm competing against. So at the end of the day, it comes down to, I don't think it's really necessarily the product, because products can be big and beautiful today and worn and tired tomorrow.
Yeah.
But what is inside it, what's the heart and soul of it, and that comes from the people.
Yeah. No, listen, a great point. We're moving into, God, it feels like the weeks are just skipping by, but we're in 2024. Let's say we're looking to the rest of the year. Two questions. The first one I'll start with is, I know it's a relatively new property, but any plans for 2024 that you'd like to share?
Actually, yes, there is. Yeah. Opening in 2019, we opened just before COVID. So we opened up pretty much everything in the hotel, with the exception of a space on the ground floor in the apartment tower. And we've got work going on in there now with the fit out to become our ballroom. So the ballroom should be ready and open in a matter of weeks, if not days. I hope it'll be days. And that is going to be a great addition to our facilities, because having over 900 keys, we opened with 2 meeting spaces. So we don't really have that much opportunity with Mice Business. So this is going to be a great addition. We'll be able to fit around 100 to 120 people for a sit-down dinner in there. 160, 180 theatre style. So it's a nice capacity. It's not massive, but it's got an 8 metre high ceiling, and it will look really nice once it's completed.
Amazing. Well, congrats and best of luck with the opening.
Yeah.
The final thing for 2024 is the guest, expectations and even the age brackets change so rapidly. Like, an interesting quote I saw was 30% of Ferrari's wait list is now under the age of 40. So you're seeing like the spend come lower and lower than it ever has before in terms of age. So the expectations are maybe different between someone who's coming to Dubai that is in their 60s that has the same money to spend as someone in their 20s or 30s. How are you looking as the man at the top, leading the group and the property here to evolve in alignment with the guest expectations, whether that be technology, or how are you looking at that?
Well, I think you've tapped on the key element there, technology, for one, because I think you need to at least keep abreast with it. And I think there are some brands that race ahead with it, which suits their brand very, very well. But again, whether the traveller is in their 20s, their 30s, their 50s, their 60s, everybody is different. And I think at the end of the day, what we look at here is, yes, we have the technology to be able to keep our guests satisfied. Our Wi-Fi is almost flawless. We have the casting system for the TVs. Everything works. We have the electronic key system. Security-wise is fantastic. But I think unless you have that human touch still, and that people feel that they're being recognised, people feel that someone is caring for them, looking after them, there's some empathy there, you can have all the technology in the world and it won't mean anything, you know. So I think that's still an important part of the business.
Yeah. No, listen, Dead right. I think it also comes down to maybe, are they coming for leisure? Are they coming for business? Are they coming as a solo traveler? Are they coming with their family? Like, I can be in two minds. If I'm coming on a business trip, you know, no matter how nice the front desk staff are, like, a queue and waiting to get a key card for me is a killer. Just let me into my room with the greatest respect. I don't need to speak to anyone.
Correct.
If I'm coming and I'm a lot more chilled and I'm with my partner, my girlfriend, whatever it may be, maybe I have a bit more time to relax. So I think it's like understanding the different types.
Yeah. But also still, you know, let's say you do walk into a lobby and it is full because the place is busy, it's pumping, and you see that queue. It's then up to the team around to see if there is somebody waiting and think, wow, okay, I can see this person needs some help.
Yeah.
And that's part of it as well. Even if someone is passing through and maybe they're from food and beverage and they're not on reception, they can still stop and ask, you know, is everything okay? Can I help you with anything? They may not have the answer, but at least they can jump in and help. And as a busy corporate person, hopefully they can at least take away a bit of that anxiety of, I don't want to queue, I just want to get to my room and get sorted.
Yeah. No, I agree. I worked at the front desk for quite a while, and I always thought, well, I never remember a guest saying to me, Mark, the way you asked for my passport and credit card, I'll never forget it. Right? Well, of course they don't, right? Like, no one remembers. No one remembers. And like, it's like signing up for a mortgage. I've always felt the lobby, and I'd love your feedback on this, I always felt the lobby was somewhat of a waste of real estate. And the first impression we have, hotels globally, is people standing behind a desk with a desk in between the guest and the staff member. And I thought, why aren't we hosts? Why aren't we meeting them outside at the car? Like, you know, because if you look at any major city, you've got a train station, the airport, and the bus station. And every guest is traveling on average 20 to 45 minutes to get to their property. And what are they doing when they're in that car?
Yeah, they're all on their devices. Yep.
Why aren't we taking away the admin part of that? So when they arrive at our property, we can greet them with face-to-face conversation.
Well, look, I mean, that's there at the moment. Technology-wise, it's available. It also comes down to a price point as well. And can that business afford the investment in the interfaces that are required, the licenses that are required to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So I can see that we have the provision to do the self-check-in. We have the provision to do the mobile key access. So it's just a matter of having to spend that money on the license and ongoing license fees. And I think this is the problem with hospitality and technology. I see that hospitality is an industry where you do have so many touch points, and you highlighted a really key one there where you can see an area that needs to be fixed, you know, or improved. And there is a way to do it, very simple, but it's not the cheapest, right? And so it's a challenge with the hotel industry keeping up with technology and maybe looking at how technology can become more affordable so that it's something that can be rolled out across many different types of properties. You know, I don't think it should be something that's relegated only to the luxury properties that can afford to invest in that sort of thing.
Yeah. I wonder, is it the fault of the operas of the world who are charging it, or is it the fault of the guest experience companies who aren't showing a clear enough ROI to the management teams where they have to make a decision? We're actually doing a white paper with Millennium on the sustainability element of getting rid of plastic key cards that end up in landfill and moving to digital keys, because there's a huge sustainability element if you think about the tens of thousands of plastic key cards.
There is, yes. Yeah, exactly.
That are non-biodegradable, a lot of them.
But they're reusable.
Yeah.
But if the guests don't want to drop them in when they're checking.
How many do? Yeah. We have a 50% loss rate in the industry. That's the issue, I think if it was.
But, it's a good question. If you have a look at the, if anyone Googles any hotel brand in the world, right? And this is just from personal experience. This is not saying that I've tested it personally. I've had a look. I'm not saying I'm the expert in it, okay? But you Google any hotel, the first option that will usually come up is an OTA. Is not the hotel itself. And that's because those OTAs have got the billions to invest in all that advertising and get that presence. And they're the ones that have gotten all that investment behind them to get the technology, to have the on-site comparisons and links and all the other bells and whistles that they have, which make them such a force to be in this industry. If hotels had that kind of investment capacity, it would be a very, very different game, I think.
Listen, Booking.com spent $5 billion on Google last year acquiring customers, so they certainly have the marketing budget to go after it. Glenn, really enjoyed this. I'd love to finish with some fun, quick fire round. So what I'll start with is, what is your hospitality pet peeve? And I'll give you an example of what mine is. So I studied hotel management in university, and the first thing we were taught is when you're moving from point A to point B, you scan the room when you're in F&B to see if anyone needs you, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't walk from one place to the other without looking. And it really irritates me when I have my hand up and I'm trying to get someone's attention and they're walking from point A to B. So that's my pet peeve in hospitality. Yep.
You weren't also told to make sure that you walk from point A to point B with something in your hand. Don't ever leave a table with
Yeah.
Anyway, my pet peeve has to be linked with elevators.
Okay.
We have 32 floors here in this hotel, plus 2 basement levels. And what my pet peeve is, probably need a bit of editing.
Say it first.
Is when people hop in the lift and either before they've got in the lift, they've pressed both the up and down button, right? So elevators will not be working to their full efficiency because both are going to land on that floor, but there won't be anyone there for one of them. Or they get in the lift and the lift is obviously going up and they want to go down, or the lift is going down and they obviously want to go up. There just seems to be a mindset of no control or no understanding how elevators work.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of that will have to be shut out.
No, not at all. I won't name the property. I think it's one of the best properties in Dubai from a price point to value point. Mm-hmm. The one thing that is an absolute killer is their elevators.
Right.
In the amount of elevators they have versus the amount of rooms they have and how long you wait for that elevator.
That's another side of it as well. Yes, when there aren't enough elevators.
Yeah, it's a real killer. Your favorite, it can't be political answer, so it can't be part of Millennium Group. That is the one rule on this one. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite property globally? And maybe it's one that just has a sentimental reason. One that I absolutely adore is a Relay and Chateau property outside Barcelona, because it's a redone kind of old farm on a vineyard, and my dad's a farmer, and it's kind of what I want to do in the future someday, and I absolutely love this property. So that's mine. What about yourself?
Sentimental value, I'd have to say the Shangri-La in Sydney, because that's where I spent 13 years working and developing in my career. But I think from a stay perspective, it would have to be on Loews in the Maldives, because it's got a surf break right in front of it.
Does it?
Yes. And it's a private break for those that are staying on the island. So you fly there, you fly to the airport from here in 3 hours, you take the boat in about 25 minutes to get there, and then you're surfing.
And no sharks?
Oh, there's lots of sharks, but there's enough fish in the sea to not worry about people.
Good. I used to surf in Portugal, outside Lisbon, in Cascais.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
You got some fantastic waves.
Amazing, yeah. We used to go down to Nazaré to watch, not participate.
Yeah. You have to wear a full suit there, right? Because it's so cold.
You do, yeah. It's the Atlantic Ocean. You can get away with it in the summer for maybe 45 minutes in shorts if you grew up in Ireland like I did and you're used to the Atlantic. But yeah, people looked at me a bit odd. Maybe that gives me an indication of your ideal vacation, but what is your ideal vacation? The interesting thing for people in Dubai, sometimes they want to go skiing because they want to get a bit of cold, but what's your...
No, I want to be somewhere warm. I like the cold, but I don't want to be in it for too long. I would love to just go and chill out, switch off, go surfing, eat good food, and drink good wine and beer and...
Amazing.
Relax.
Yeah, I can see you thinking about it right now.
Already.
Glenn, I've really enjoyed this. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate it, mate.